Hello, everyone. Welcome to everyone joining us. My name is Kat Kershaw, she, her. I am an education and support service coordinator here at Parkinson Society BC, and I'm extremely excited about our mental health and Parkinson's webinar today, focusing on navigating identity loss and motivation. I would just like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of Indigenous people across BC, and we're grateful to live, work, and learn on this land, and we honour the resilience, knowledge, and contributions of Indigenous communities past and present. I am delighted today to introduce Sarah Amandian and David Walker, who will be joining us. They today are going to be sharing their wealth of wisdom with us today. So Sarah is a registered clinical counselor, and she specializes in chronic illness, ADHD, and mental health support for Black, Indigenous, people of color, and immigrant communities. She is especially passionate about helping people through the emotional impact of life-changing diagnoses, guiding them as they navigate identity, loss, and resilience. And having her own experience with chronic illness, Sarah brings both professional expertise and personal understanding to her work. So thank you so much, Sarah, for being with us today. I would also love to introduce David. So David's about to join the call. But David was born in Portrush, Northern Ireland, and David immigrated with his family to Toronto in 1954. As a graduate from the University of Guelph, David was in business as a landscape architect until sidelined by a short stint as a charity volunteer. Now, this involvement subsequently led to a 47-year career in charities, primarily in relief and humanitarian work, which had him traveling to almost 70 countries. And he was also the vice president of World Vision Canada. Shortly after retirement in January 2023, at age 73, David was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, but David has not allowed that to define him. Since retiring, David has obtained his philosophy degree from Simon Fraser University. He's taken up photography, sketching, writing. His joy until recently has also been learning and participating in Grand Fondo cycling, track and field competitions, Ironman triathlons, and most recently cross-country running. To date, David has also volunteered in 4 research studies at the Pacific Parkinson's Research Institute. And David follows the sun by living 6 months of the year in Coquitlam, BC, and 6 months in San Jose de Cablo in Mexico. And so before I pass over to Sarah and she will begin the webinar, I just wanted to let everyone know that we are going to leave questions till the end. But please feel free to just pop questions in the chat as they come to you. If I could ask that you could just note who you want to ask the question to, so either Sarah or David. And alternatively, you can wait till the end and just raise your hand and ask yourself. So I will now pass you over to Sarah.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you all. So I'm just going to start to share my screen to hopefully be able to share the presentation with all of you. Just give me 1 second as I do that. Gotta navigate. There we go. Okay. All right. So hope everybody can start to see the presentation. So happy to be here with all of you. As Kat shared, my name is Sarah. I'm a registered clinical counselor, and I do specialize in chronic illness, and so this is one of my passions. So I'm really happy to be here with all of you. And today's presentation, we're going to be really talking about just the impact of Parkinson's on mental health. And it's a great day to be talking about that since today is October 10th and it is the World Mental Health Day. So I think what's important to recognize is that Parkinson's is more than just a neurological condition. Obviously, what I mean by that is generally when we talk about Parkinson's, we really focus on the medical side, the physical side, right? Talking about the tremors, the medication, the rigidity. but it's really important to recognize that it's also a lifelong experience, right? It affects the way people see themselves, the way families function, and even the way relationships sort of evolve. So it can impact both the person living with the disease and their loved ones too. And even though there can be sort of unique challenges for these groups, there's also overlapping challenges. So today we're going to focus on identity loss and motivation and how that is impacted by Parkinson's. And we're going to look at how it impacts the person living with the condition as well as their loved ones. And then, of course, in the middle, David's going to join you all to share his story as well. So starting with identity, I often think about sort of any chronic illness has a huge impact on identity. I mean, for me, it really felt like it when I first got diagnosed, it was a shattering experience. And that is a really painful thing to think about, but it is a fact. It's a big experience. So of course, any big experience is going to impact us. But for a person with Parkinson's, there's going to be a shift in independence, right? They may go from being independent and active to having to depend on others for support. Work roles, hobbies, even personality traits can change. So, if you are losing activities that used to define you, we can have this thought of, who am I if I can't do the activity that used to give my life meaning? And oftentimes, we're not really used to talking about Parkinson's as like an agent of personality change. We focus more on it being a disease of movement, but we know that Parkinson's impacts the brain. And where does our personality come from? Our brain. So there can be some personality changes, but personality changes are also part of life. Like, you're probably not who you were when you were 2 years old. Your personality has evolved and has changed. So they can also be career changes, role changes, changes in self-image. And for loved ones, they might experience identity shifts too, right? They may go from a spouse, child, or a friend to often finding themselves in that caregiving role, right? And it's going to be really challenging to try to balance their self-identity with that caregiving role. Right? They might wonder, like, partner might wonder, am I still a partner or am I now a caregiver? So for both groups, the thread that kind of brings them together is that grieving of their old versions of themselves, right? The person that they used to be before kind of Parkinson sort of took that center stage. And so what I want to do is I want to get you guys to do some self-reflection at this point. And you don't have to put this into chat. This is just kind of for you to reflect on. But I want you to take a minute to think about, what are 3 words that you would have used to describe yourself before Parkinson's took that center stage? And then what are those 3 words that you'd use to describe yourself now? I'll just give all of you a minute while I sip my coffee. I don't expect everybody to have done it, but I will talk, and you can still think about it. Hopefully, what I'm saying might help. Because I can't hear your answers, I will use my own experience to sort of talk about this. So before my own diagnosis, I would have described myself sort of as athletic. I used to figure skate. I loved doing the grass grind way too much. I would describe myself as driven and definitely silly and quirky. I love that part of me. And then immediately after my diagnosis, I think the words that I would have used to describe myself would have been exhausted, fragile, broken. And those are really painful descriptors. Now, 12 years after having lived with my chronic condition, I would describe myself as driven, open-minded, and still silly and quirky. Um, and so you can see some of those descriptors have remained. Driven has remained. Some of them has changed, like the athlete has changed, and that's because I made a choice. I made a choice that, I wanted to focus my energy towards different things rather than continuing to figure skate and continuing to do the grass grind. So, for all of you to think about, did that description change for you? Right? And, you know, is that description attached to sort of your activities, to your body functioning? Um, and is the current description that you have for yourself how you want to be describing yourself, or do you want that to change? So as we move forward to the next aspect of this, so we've talked about identity, we're moving to loss. And with loss, it's very much connected to that identity piece too, right? And it's not just loss about big things. Grieving the loss of small things too. It might be the loss of the ability to button your shirt. I know for me, when I first got diagnosed, it was the loss of the ability to wash my hair. I can wash my hair now, but it was a challenge when I first got diagnosed. And it's a small thing, but it's something that we take for granted. It's something that we so used to doing, and to have it taken away one day, it's really challenging. So, for a person with Parkinson's, there's that loss of gradual change in mobility, speech, hobbies, daily routine, personality, cognition, brain fog, right, and even social connections. And then for caregivers and loved ones, it's also sort of loss of freedom. Plans that you had with the person who's living with Parkinson's, time for yourself, and even the loss of the person who is living with the condition. Right? There was that idea of companionship, future that you had envisioned together, and there are changes that you have to start to deal with. So there's the theme here is really that loss of control, predictability, stability, sometimes even that feeling of hope. I use the word ongoing experience because sometimes we don't just get to grieve it and then process that grief and then move forward. It's an ongoing experience because, for me, definitely at the beginning of my diagnosis, the focus was really on management of physical symptoms. And then afterwards was when I started to notice the cognitive and the mental health one, right? What's kind of common within all different types of chronic conditions is the brain fog, changes to your memory, your executive functioning. So it's an ongoing experience of grief that you're going through. And of course, all of this, both the changes in that sense of identity, the loss, the grief, is also going to impact the motivation because we're going to be dealing with feelings of defeat and apathy, right? So there's going to be this lack of motivation of, do I even want to, what's the point? Do I want to do doing anything if I can't do it the way that I used to do, right? We might not have that motivation to stay connected with friends. They don't understand anyway, so why bother? No motivation to stick with the hobbies. And of course, for loved ones, there's that challenge with sustaining caregiving, right? There is the fatigue, the burnout, and sometimes even experience of compassion fatigue that might come up. So the shared experience here is feeling defeated, feeling exhausted, experiencing apathy. But motivation for most of us just usually comes from feeling connected, meaning, and even just small daily wins. Right? So if we know why we're doing something, we're going to feel motivated to do it. I often talk about this with clients. It's a bit silly, but if I asked you to walk on hot coals, would you? Probably not. It would not be a pleasant experience. But if I told you that your loved one is on the other side and you're the only one that can save them, would you do it? Yes, you would be motivated to do it. The act of walking on hot coals would still not be fun, but the why is the thing that drives you, gets you feeling motivated. So this kind of brings us to Okay, Sarah, you told me all things that Parkinson's impacts. Now, how do I deal with all of this? And I think acceptance and our values are going to be the thing that are going to help us navigate these experiences. And acceptance is often understood as resignation, right? As defeat. But I want you to think of acceptance as making space for the things that you can't control. So you're accepting the things that you can't control, which then frees up your energy to focus on things that matter most to you and that are within your control. And the metaphor I like to use for acceptance is playing cards. You don't get to choose the card that you're dealt with, but you get to choose how you're going to play them. I want you to now take a minute to reflect. Are you happy with how you're playing your hand? Do you wish you could play it differently? Are there ways to play it differently? Um, so acceptance can really free up that energy instead of fighting with a chronic condition that we didn't choose, we don't have any control over. We can accept it and then go, okay, what's the life that I want to live if I accept this? What do I want to put my energy towards? So I want all of you to take a break from hearing from me and hand this over to David. Um, and David he's a long-time sports enthusiast and a Parkinson's advocate. And I think his story is going to really show us how personal values can remain central even after diagnosis. And to introduce him, I'd love to play a little video for all of you that shows David participating in the Vancouver 100 triathlon in June. So I will play that for all of you and then let David take over. Right, David, to you.
Okay, thank you. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
Terrific. So that was about 4 months ago. And it was my decision that I would retire at that point from Ironman. But let me back up. 47 years ago, my identity was a charity worker, as Kate mentioned. And I was pretty good. I mean, I went around the world and I did a lot of good things, all to the point where I decided I would get a new identity, which is retired worker, father, grandfather, golfer, you name it. I had a new identity coming when I got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. I had hit it for quite a while. In fact, it was in my running on track that my coach kept coming, Sam Walker kept coming, David, swing your arms, swing your arms. You got to especially move that left arm. It hanged there. And then I started to stumble. I represented Canada in Tempe, Finland in the 5,000, and I fell on the 10th lap, got up, ran again, fell again. On the third one, the official came out and touched me. Even though I wanted to do well, I couldn't. I just couldn't. And then at different dinners, social gatherings, you could see my fork shaking. And finally, I went to the family doctor. She quite frankly quickly confirmed it, but the first Zoom call wasn't all that successful. It wasn't a movement disorder a specialist. So subsequently went to the Pacific Parkinson's Research Institute, and after a thorough workup, was defined as having the disease of Parkinson's. But I was not going to let that define me, because I was still David Walker inside, even though gradually maybe some people would look at me and see this different person. But I was not going to let Parkinson's define me. I was committed to that. Well, how would I do that? Because here I was, very active, finishing up my philosophy degree as a retired person, enjoying travel to Europe with my wife. Well, thankfully, even though I didn't meet Sarah at that time, I had contact with someone else who said, David, it's your inside that counts. On the outside, I looked different, I acted different, and I had some symptoms that reflected different on the outside, but the inside. And what I'd like to do just in the next few minutes is share a little bit of some of the values that I have taken from what I thought was a successful career to a successful life living with Parkinson's disease. And I listed a few there. First of all, I think I'm a resilient doer. That was my template. But with Parkinson's, the symptom is apathy, and procrastination. And sometimes I can find myself just sitting, and I had that long stare, and to overcome that, I know that I'm a resilient doer. And what I have to do is that I put a goal in place that will drive me into the vortex of a timeline. And in that context, I can do activities. I can't do a goal, but I can do those activities little bit by little bit by little bit. And yeah, I'm a doer. I haven't run cross country since high school. I threw up in high school, and I remember that. I signed up about 8 weeks ago to run a series of cross country runs, 4 out of 6, and you get points. Well, next Saturday I'm in Vernon, British Columbia, and if I do again well in that, I will be the British Columbia cross country champion, 70 plus, all because I put a goal together and I did that little goal. Another example, and it's been mentioned already, brain fog, cognitive dissonance, especially stress, the stress of being prepared to be on a Zoom meeting. You wouldn't believe that. Um, and there was a couple of years ago, I was trying to figure out the way that Janet and I could have a 7 country tour, a car tour of the Balkans. And I would try to figure it out. Well, okay, I've got insurance for the car in this kind, and I've got so many days. And well, I've learned how to use Chat GPT, and I punched in all in 5 sentences. That helped me overcome this stress. And in 8 seconds, I got the whole trip all organized, the museums and galleries we needed to go to, the things we love to do, the GPS. It was all done. So yeah, I could overcome this thing. Another word I get is sunsetting. I don't know if you get, but come 5 or 6 in some days, my face, the mask comes on, and I use a cane to walk, etc. Well, uh, we like social. So Janet and I have now decided we have matinee dinners. All our friends know to come at 3:30, or when they invite us, our retired friends, we go there at 3:30, and the young people, the 40 and 50-year-olds, we did that on Saturday. So they know that I need a matinee dinner, and that's one of the ways that I can overcome that. Performance was important in my life, that I performed well, and then I just thought, no, it's not performance, it's mastery. And so when I touched down on jobs that I had, I wanted to master them. Well, I had a big stage, and I love being at the front of that stage. Well, now with Parkinson's, my stage is just a little bit, but I want to be on the cutting edge of my little table, right? Or my little stage. And that's a perspective that I have. For example, um, uh, 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 hang on there. in AB, yes, here I am. In 6 weeks, I turned 76, and I thought, how am I going to master living life fully and the insurance company said that I had 6 years to live once I get to 76. And so well, I thought I'll embed AI and ChatGPT more into my life so that I can live a sweet life even longer because I've learned that. I'm also a creative dreamer, and I think you can catch that. I'm not a good detail person, but uh, Parkinson's kind of puts limits on those dreams. But I can still, moment by moment, day by day, move towards something bigger than I thought I could. Because dreams don't die, just the dreamer. And little Parkinson's takes a little bit out of you every day. Just cut. Well, my dreams don't die, just a little bit of the dreamer dies. And I'm not going to let that, because I want to hold on tight to my dreams. And at age 70, I decided to learn to swim. And then I did a triathlon. I did an Ironman because now I knew how to swim. And the very next morning, I didn't know, okay, what will I do now? And I did a little sketch. Here's my little sketch. I don't know if you can see that. I was doodling, and that's my little sketch. I thought, that looks like a kindergarten, but I could be a sketch artist. And unbelievably, I thought, I want to be in a gallery someday. Well, I get up at 3 o'clock every morning and I do a little bit, about less than an hour. And now, 4 years later, I have, I don't know if you remember Kosh. Karsh, he was a great photographer. So I've used his photo references, and these are my sketches. That was Churchill. That's Helen Keller. And I'm going to be at an art gallery. I sold one for $750 for a charity the other day. Well, that's dreaming. And then even now, sometimes with my hand shaking before my meds kick in, I'll hold both, but I'm still dreaming. Does that make sense? Uh, I by the way, I forgot to put my timer on. How much do I have? 3 more minutes? Or okay. Another Parkinson's is cognitive decline. Well, you already heard. I went back and I got my philosophy degree. When I walked across the stage, I started it in 1983. The president said, "Well, it took you quite a while. What took you so long?" And I said, "Well, I had to get Parkinson's first." Anyway, point is, I I keep dreaming. I keep thinking. And so I wrote a poem a number of years ago. Then I thought I can attach a poem to my photography. I started photography and then to my sketch. And every day in the weekday, I now post a poem on Instagram because I want to think through my philosophy of life. And so I think that through. I do a poem of 3 stanzas, 4 lines each with an A, B, C, D, A, or B rhyming. And now I've posted 1,300 poems. Can you believe it? I've written 1,300 poems just to continue to pursue a dream. And then lastly, if you bear with me, I want to be a grateful friend. A lot of them drop off. They want to be around a parky. That's okay. But for example, I used to be in men's golf days, etc. Now I've put that down to only 7 friends, and I golf with 7 friends. And it doesn't matter about the number. It matters that around the 9th or 10th hole, a good friend takes this big margarita tea and puts it in and puts the ball on for me. Or maybe around the 16th hole, I'll say to the guys, "Hey, I just want to stay in the cart." That's so sweet that you can still keep on keeping on uh, because I want to be a disciplined finisher. One other thing I do to keep friendships, because I can isolate so quickly as a parky, every Wednesday, starting at 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, I call 7 people. I have done that for all the years I've been defined with Parkinson's, not defined, but diagnosed with Parkinson's. At 8 o'clock, I call Martha. She's so positive. She's now lost 6 body parts to cancer, and we talk for half an hour. At 8:30, I called Bill, and we cross the metaphysical universe. At 9, I called Bob. It just goes on, and I have my friendship morning every Wednesday morning. And these friends, I mean, I could land in Phoenix to meet Bob tomorrow, and we'll say, and I haven't seen him for 2 years. I'll say, "Oh, how was your week?" Because of that friendship that we have. Um, uh, I'm going to skip several and come to the last one, because one of the things that I sense as I walk this Parkinson's life is that I could become alone. I could become small. The number one way to, for me, this is for me, is the relationship that I have with my wife Janet, who is my caregiver, big time. And as I keep in there with her and she keeps in there with me, it's the sweetest life. Now, let me finish by saying this T100 group that came to Vancouver in June, they just posted last week another little clip. And I want to show you, or Sarah will show you this little clip, because at the end of the race, I went to the bike rack and they were there with their video crew and they started to ask me questions. You're going to see a little part of this clip where they're asking me, well, will I come back? Will I come back? And I make a commitment, and you'll see, don't tell my wife, but this is the best part of Parkinson's. It's brought Janet and I just like that. So I'll finish with that little clip, and I'm open to any Q&A at the end.
Thank you, David. I'll press the video for us.
You're almost there, David. I'm gonna finish it. Are you gonna finish this race? You better believe it. Nothing's gonna stop me. I got this. It was honoring the race, but it was honoring Parkinson's too, and not letting that beat us. Life is sweet, and you want to squeeze all the juice out of life that you can. You guys come back. I will do it. Yes. Don't tell my wife. But if you guys come back, I'll do another sprint, and that will keep me motivated. That will keep me motivated.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate you and just appreciate hearing your story. And I think, what David just shared is really this powerful example of living by your values. And I think of our values as sort of our inner compass. They don't erase our challenges, they don't erase our losses, but they do give us sort of the direction, right? And especially when our identity feels a little shaken, the values can really remind us of who we're at our core. I mean, no one is prepared for a chronic health diagnosis. It's sort of this uncharted territory. And our values can really guide us in, like, okay, well, where do I want to go now? If I'm feeling lost, how do I want to move forward? And if you've ever listened into a presentation that I've done, you know I really like metaphors. I've already used one. So I want to kind of bring in a metaphor that I think can be really, really helpful for understanding chronic conditions and values. And this is a metaphor from acceptance and commitment therapy. It's called Passengers on the Bus. So in this metaphor, we want to imagine life as a journey, and you are the driver of your bus. You get to choose, where you want to go, what's important to you. You get to direct the bus, find a direction. And over the course of your life, you're going to have various passengers that have boarded your bus, right? These are your thoughts, your feelings, your memories, your inner experiences. And some of these passengers are going to be pleasant. Some you're going to feel neutral about. And there's going to be some that are unpleasant or scary. And, I think of any chronic condition as a new passenger on that bus that for most of us is unpleasant and scary. These scary passengers sometimes try to move to the front. They try to threaten you, try to take control, right? They want to demand attention and control. And for most people, the common reaction to these unpleasant passengers trying to take control is to try to stop the bus, to fight them, to tell them to go sit down, even try to throw them off the bus. Of course, that one's impossible because they're a part of you. Or you might try to make deals. You're like, yeah, okay, I'll do this thing if you promise to stay quiet. I won't engage in this activity just to make sure you don't get upset. But all of these reactions and responses are going to give that passenger control. You are going to lose control. You're not going to be able to move towards what's really important to you. So we want to be able to acknowledge that these are our passengers. They're on our bus. And then still trying to maintain the direction that we want. Keep driving towards things that matter to us. We might have to make slight adjustments, but we still want to try to drive there. So it's really about what are some different ways that I can respond to these passengers that still allow me to move in the direction that's important to me. And oops, skip one. So Parkinson's is a passenger, right? And in my experience with my own condition, but also supporting clients with chronic conditions, I do see two very common responses here, right? And one is that avoidance and denial. So trying to keep going while pretend nothing has changed, right? Trying to keep everything exactly the same. And then there's that fight/control response. It's like trying to do everything to not cause any symptoms, not to aggravate the condition. And there's a terminology for this, and like value illness, where it's like when a person puts their valued activities on hold in the service of reducing their symptoms. And because symptoms management starts to occupy so much of this person's time, other valued activities are neglected. So we risk sort of losing the things that make our lives meaningful. Now, let me be very clear. Like, yes, when we do have a chronic condition, we do have to do symptoms management. We do have to make sure we're, going to our doctor's appointment, taking our medications. We are doing those things. But if we can start to accept that, okay, this is a part of our life, that we're going to have to do those things, we can also put aside some time to focus on things that are important to us. So this acceptance is accepting you have a passenger on your bus. It's going to impact your life, but you're still the driver. Defeat is I'm just going to give up the driver's seat and just let this passenger get behind the wheel. So, having said all of that, how do we move forward? How do we rebuild? Right? If we do feel like our identity has been shattered, if we do feel a little bit lost, how do we find ourselves and rebuild? So it's important to name the losses, to grieve, right? It is true. There's that loss of activities that brought joy, loss of a partner or a future that you envisioned together, loss of functioning. These are true, and it's valid to grieve them. But life doesn't end there. This is an opportunity to build something new, something different. And I definitely had a thought. So if you have this thought, just want to normalize it, right? Of like, well, it's not fair. I don't want to rebuild. I worked so hard to build this one. Don't make me rebuild this. This is not fair. I want my old life back. And that's valid and true. But again, that's not within any of our controls, right? So I want all of you to sort of reflect. Is this the life that I want for myself? What does the life that I want for myself look like? What do I want my life to stand for? What's important to me? What do I value? What would I be doing differently if I was living in accordance with my values? For David, there were these values of, being a grateful friend, being somebody who's disciplined, being a doer. These were very, very important values for him. That doesn't mean those have to be important values for you, but it is important for you to recognize what are the things that are important for me, right? What values help me stay connected to myself and to other people, even in those difficult moments. We're going to recognize that change is inevitable. Nothing in our lives is permanent, right? And so we have to sort of develop flexibility and adaptability, accepting that there's going to be a lot of unpredictability, really practicing that flexibility. And I saw David doing that, right? And so really thinking about how can I still engage in activities that provide meaning and joy while considering Parkinson's? Right? So if you really enjoy writing, and you're finding it difficult and frustrating to write as fast as you used to, okay, maybe accepting that maybe you won't write as fast, but you can still write. Or if it's really too much to write, okay, can we use those dictation programs so that you're speaking? If you enjoyed exercising, can I slow it down so I can still engage in those exercises? But if you don't want to, then can I engage in gentle movement? That's also a possibility. It doesn't mean that we have to completely remove that from our pool of activities, right? Like knitting tells me that you value creativity. Okay, if you can't knit, can you find an alternative activity that aligns with the values and helps you stay connected with your sense of self, right? So what we really want to do is we want to redirect our attention to things that are in our control. And in order to do that, we also have to have some self-compassion, right? Not getting frustrated and angry with our body because our body is struggling, but it's still also doing a lot for us. It is amazing to think about our little brain and what it does all the time. It is always active, it's always working. So yeah, maybe it's not functioning the way that we want it to, but it's still really. So having that self-compassion for ourselves when, it happens for me with brain fog during presentations where I forget a word, forget sentences, I get stuck, and having that self-compassion for myself that's okay. Just give myself a minute. We'll come back, and if it doesn't, I know that I'm pretty good at finding a different word for it, right? Like, I think the other day I forgot the word for socks. And I had to be like the thing that goes on your foot, that goes in between your foot and your shoe, that you put your shoe in. By the time I finished that explanation, the word socks came to my mind. But, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. Not getting angry at myself for that and being like, that's okay, right? That's self-passion. I think one concept that we often don't talk about, and I don't see talked about a lot, is this concept of post-traumatic growth. And the concept is it's a positive psychological change that some individuals experience after a life crisis or a trauma. Of course, this is not to dismiss the distress of the traumatic event, right? The loss and the suffering. But it does show that sometimes today can also allow us to reflect deeper into our values, into what's important for us, right? Sometimes once we have dealt with that trauma, we can also recognize that, okay, this is kind of like a shock to my system that helps me remember what are the things that really matter to me, what are the things that are really to me. And so this is kind of an opportunity to really start to reflect on that. What are things that are important to you? What do you want your life for? Right? But life is limited. So we want to, as David said, squeeze all the juice out of life, right? We want to use every moment that we can, so that we often have more regret when we don't do things rather than if we do stuff, right? So I've talked a lot about values, but values can be such an abstract term. Like, what are your values? What means anything to you? And I think I wanted to sort of go through this little activity. This is going to require reflection and thought, so you probably won't be able to do it in our presentation, but I wanted to go over it with all of you, and there's going to be a link in the resources to actually download the worksheet for this so that you can do it on your own time. But this is sort of called the bullseye. Again, it comes from my favorite therapeutic modality, acceptance and commitment therapy. And so this bullseye is really about for you to be able to explore your values and explore what life living in accord with those values looks like. And so it's got those 4 quadrants. And for whatever reason, I did not put them in order. So bear with me. We're going to swing around the quadrants to go through them. So we'll start, one quadrant is sort of work and education. This is reflecting on if you are still working, your workplace, reflecting on your education, your knowledge, skill development, right? So David wanted to develop his skills, swimming, and sketching. Like those are the things that he wanted to do. And he wanted those things, so he took steps towards them. So in here, it's like, well, what are those things for you? What do you want to develop? And then going across to relationships. This is about first intimacy, closeness, friendships, bonding in your life, right? What type of relationships do you want to build? How do you want to be in those relationships? What personal goals do you want to bring to friendships and connections? And then moving here to personal growth and health. So this is really about it can incorporate things like religion, spirituality, right? Connection to nature, creativity, self-care, right? How do you want to focus on personal growth? How do you want to grow? And then the last one is sort of leisure. How do you want to play, relax, enjoy yourself? What are these fun things that you would like to spend your time doing? So as you reflect on those, so the way the worksheet works is that we want to put a little dot in each one of these spots about where we currently are. And the further away you are from the bullseye, it means the further away you are from living in accordance with your values. The closer you are to the bullseye, the closer you are to living in accordance with your values. And I find this helpful and of an activity to do. It's helpful if you put it close to the bullseye because, hey, you're doing good. You're living in accordance to your values. If it's further away, then it's time for reflection on what is getting in my way of living in accordance with my values. And I guarantee as you reflect on this, Parkinson's will come up as an answer and a valid answer. And then it's time to go, okay, but I can't control that. So if I still want to move towards the bullseye, what do I need to be willing to experience in order to get there? And what are those alternative paths that I can take, right? So really thinking about what are the steps that I need to take to get closer to living in accordance with my values. Okay. So I hope that all made sense, but the worksheet is also going to have all of the explanations that will be helpful. And I honestly think this is a helpful exercise for all of us. A lot of us, even before I was diagnosed with my chronic condition, actually maybe especially before I was diagnosed, I felt like I was running on autopilot, doing things because I have to do them, rushing to get stuff done because, okay, well, I have to like make money, and I have to get education, I have to finish school, and I have to do this and do that. And I wouldn't really reflect on my values and what was important to me. And if I was doing things that fit my values, because I don't have time, I'll deal with that later. So I think this exercise is really helpful for everybody. It's helpful to start to reflect, like, is this the life that I want to live for myself? Am I living in accordance to my values or to somebody else's values? All right, so that's the majority of my presentation for all of you today. I hope you were all able to take something helpful out of this. I did want to end with some resources that I think would be really great. This presentation is set by Parkinson's Society of BC, and they actually have some really great resources. I know that it can be really overwhelming to sort of look this stuff up on your own, so I did want to put link to some of them that are really going to be great. They offer support groups that are offered in person and virtually. They also offer virtual physiotherapy, and so this is one of those things where, like, if going in person and physically traveling there is not possible, this is an alternative route that we're taking in order to be able to do the thing that we want. PD Link is great too. It's peer support, being connected with another person who's dealing with Parkinson's. And of course, events and workshops was one of the events. One of the workshops. There have so many other ones that I highly encourage you to check out. And then the last one, they do offer counseling and healthcare navigation. So they have free short-term counseling services. And I think sometimes we can feel really stuck in figuring out the alternative, figuring out what are the next steps, figuring out, okay, I know where my values are, I know where I am now, I don't know how to get from one place to another, and a therapist, a counselor can really help you in brainstorming, reflecting, thinking about those things more deeply. And of course, with a chronic condition diagnosis, sometimes it can also bring up to surface things that we haven't dealt with in the past. So great resource there, as well as if you're looking for more long-term counseling support, the BCACC directory is right there. This is a directory of all registered clinical counselors in British Columbia. So you can look up there and find a therapist that fits your needs. You can actually filter the list for therapists that specialize in chronic illness and chronic pain, so that you have somebody who has a deeper understanding. The other thing is the Parkinson's Acceptance Commitment Therapy app, PACT. This is a web-based act. This is a web-based app, and it was actually designed. It's a UK-based one. It was designed in collaboration with researchers in the UK. And so what it does, it offers these short 5 to 10 minute self-guided lessons to help you sort of utilize and understand these skills of like, what does acceptance look like in terms of managing Parkinson? What is living in accordance with your values look like in the context of Parkinson's? So it's a great resource. It's free. One thing I do want you all to note is that because it is UK based, your data will be stored in the UK. So, take that with a grain of salt. Think about if you want that. Are you any worries about, data storage privacy? That's kind of up to all of you. Did want to make sure I mention that. This one is The Happiness Trap. This is a book by Russ Harris. So again, this is acceptance and commitment-based therapy, self-help book, and I really like this book because I find that it's easy to read, and it has a lot of activities and worksheets that you can do that can really help you understand. And of course, I really love the name Happiness Trap because what does happiness mean? Sometimes in the pursuit of happiness, we might be trying so hard to be happy that we might not be willing to accept, other emotions. So it's a really great book. Highly recommended. I think I've read it a few times myself. Like every time I read it, I gain something new from it. Of course, the last one is Clarifying Your Values worksheet. That's the bullseye that you can click on and download the PDF so that you can use it and share it with others as well. Okay, so that's that. I do want to leave the last page on here with the contact information. Feel free to email me if you have any questions or you need any information. My email is sarah@madiancounseling.com. And of course, you can check out my website too. I do have, in addition to sort of talking about identity and those pieces, I do also really love doing mindfulness, and I do have a free mindfulness program on there with recorded mindfulness activities that you can check out, and a lot more resources on my website as well. So feel free. And of course, David's Instagram, where you can see those lovely poems he's posting, which is at Poems and Photos by DW. So please feel free to join that. Okay, that's looking forward to the questions.
Right. So I would just now invite anyone with a question, either raise your hand or pop it in the chat. And just while we wait for those to come through, we had a few comments while you were both speaking, so I'll just share those with you. So John said 28 years now with Parkinson's, and he's gotten used to what he can do, and he's still teaching and playing badminton, which is amazing. I think that's so lovely to hear.
Good job.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool. And so important to be doing those activities that bring us joy. And then there's just a comment here from Elena. She said, David, your presentation was beautiful. Really appreciate your openness. I'm inspired by you.
Ditto.
Which I think we can all agree with.
I'm definitely inspired too. And there was a moment where Pam was like, maybe you should do a triathlon. And I was like, no, I like counseling more than doing triathlons. But I was definitely inspired.
And then I just have a comment here regarding being a caregiver for 32 years. And this presentation and discussion has brought up many things affecting me. And just from a Parkinson Society BC perspective, I just wanted to share that Sarah mentioned our counseling service. That's actually also open to caregivers, partners, and family members. So please, as a caregiver, get in touch. We would love you to pop you on our wait list and give you the opportunity to chat to a counsellor. And then we just have a few thank yous, which is amazing. Does anyone else have any more questions? Alrighty then. Well, I have one that I would like to ask you, Sarah and David, just to finish us up. Could you please share with us if you want people to walk away today with just one thing, one saying, or maybe something to go away and think about, what would their advice be?
Parkinson sucks. I hate it. In fact, and just another little comment. I had to get re-upped on my meds last week. I had the workup at the Pacific Parkinson's Clinic. I'm, by the way, I'm a part of a great research group called 360, and there's a dozen or so parkies. I call us parkies on a Zoom every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we exercise together. That's okay. Then on Tuesdays, we have an hour and a half of mindfulness. That's for 14 weeks. That's a hard one for me to. And on Thursdays, we have two chefs that teach us how to cook Mediterranean. Now that's tough for this Irish guy that likes meat and potatoes, but I can be keep and I can learn that these things won't change me, but will mitigate these symptoms that keep coming down the pipe. And in the exercise, I discovered, and this is what the discussion was last Thursday, that you can have like a one-sided weakness in Parkinson's. I did not know that. And my left side, my shoulder is usually hurting. I discovered a couple of weeks ago, I tried it. I went to the gym and I raised with leg raises, I could do 30 pounds. And then I had to take the pin out for my left side. So I had a great discussion last Thursday, and it was determined that, in my simple way, there's not enough dopamine going from the right hemisphere into this left side. So they 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 have like doubled everything. So I started 2 days ago, and you know what? I hate it. Last night I had these two awful dreams that I mean you wake up almost screaming, as the result of the side effects. So it sucks, but you keep a day at a time walking through it. And I know things like cycle around. It'll get worse and worse and worse. And so here's the last thing. There's a long answer to you, Kate. Yes, it's a god awful disease, but life is still sweet. The life is sweet, and you continue enjoying with a heartful, a gratitude heart that I can live. I can live, and so I have to take now, what is it now, 35 pills a day or whatever it is. Well, isn't it great that I live at this time? And isn't it great that I am part of that research group that discovered that I had that I have and that I can start to eat better than an old Irishman. 76 years old and I'm changing my eating. That's crazy. But because life is sweet. So my last little thing would be, yeah, Parkinson's sucks, but life is sweet.
It's really special.
Yeah, I said, I mean, I'm not sure I can add much. I feel like I'm going to repeat a lot of what I said, but I think really, if there's anything to take away, it's reflecting on really what's in my control. What is in my control? What can I do to turn on that sweetness? Because, yeah, Parkinson's is going to turn on a little bit of bitterness. So, or maybe a lot of bitterness. I shouldn't say that. Um, and how can I turn on the sweetness tab so that I can still enjoy life? Right? I mean, as I was prepping for this presentation, I actually had an awful flare up where I had inflammation in my eyes and I couldn't look at the screen, and I could find myself feeling like, oh my God, here it comes again. Here we go again. I have to deal with all of this. It's so unfair. And then I had to be like, okay, well, what do I have in control? Just gonna maybe try to not use a computer and do this on a piece of paper and just take a deep breath. Do the things that bring joy and make me happy, because me being angry that I have a flare up at the worst time possible has never made my flare ups go away, has never made my symptoms go away, has never made it easier for me to deal with life. In fact, it's just been me fighting with the reality, which is very dysregulated. So, really always reminding yourself, what do I have that's in my control, and how can I make life more meaningful?
I love both of those parting words. And just one final comment that has made me laugh, as John said, Parkinson's has been good for me. When I fly, like on an airplane, they see me shaking and put me into business class for free. And I think that's a lovely way to end today. Just,
Wheelchairs, yes, wheelchairs. I get a
yeah.
wheelchair.
I really love that. It's a great way to kind of focus in on those different perspectives. So I would love to thank everyone for joining us today. A massive thank you to Sarah and David for the amazing information you've shared. It's been a really lovely webinar, and I'm sure everyone who joined feels the same as I. Just for participants, I will be sending out the slides later today, so you'll be able to access all of those links that Sarah had on the last two pages, and go see David's Instagram and his poems, photos, his videos, and all of those resources. And if you have any feedback on today's session or topics that you would like to see the Parkinson Society organize, please let me know. Feel free to reply to the email that I send the slides on. And I'm just wishing everyone a really lovely long weekend for Thanksgiving.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.